Good morning. I'm John Persico. I'm a consultant that works with strategic planning. And what I'd like to talk to you today a little about is the process of strategic planning, not necessarily all the steps, but actually how the consultant plays a role in it and some of the other factors that are often ignored. The first thing I want to say is that a consultant role in strategic planning is not simply to implement a formula, but it's actually to be there to challenge the system and to kind of shake up things. If a consultant is only sitting around following a blue ocean method or 7 steps to strategic planning, then they're not really adding any value to your system. This consultant must help by challenging perceptions and the view, the current, as Peter Drucker once said, the current view of reality that the management has. So the consultant has a very integral role, and this is often overlooked in the strategic planning process. The second thing I'd like to add to this is that a couple of things. One, the role of employees in the planning process. I think that the Japanese use a method called Hoshin planning, which kind of cascades and rolls down the planning process. But Americans typically see it as a top-down process. But the strategic planning process has to be a bottom-up as well as top-down. The employees have to be an integral part of the planning process during the whole strategic development process. If you're not including your employees in the process, then you're not really creating an adequate plan. So that's another point I want to make. Another point is that strategic plans are not an absolute. They're not a fixed formula. They're not a fixed set of axioms. What they are more or less hypotheses. We're looking at efficiency and effectiveness. We're looking at the future and the current. We're looking at short-term and long-term. We're looking at the internal operations of the organization as well as the external. We're looking at the customers versus competitors. And all of these things we form hypotheses around, and those hypotheses have to be constantly tested. So it's not like we create a plan and then we say, okay, what are the goals and how do we implement the plan and who do we have to work on the plan? No, we've got to do more than that. We have got to see these as hypotheses that we're testing. We've got to develop tests for these hypotheses. Without doing that, we're not really generating plans that are going to be robust. What we're doing is we're throwing out some absolutes, and as soon as something changes in our environment, which is just about daily these days, those plans become dysfunctional, actually, not even useless. They become worse. They become dysfunctional because they become barriers. They create a new mindset that creates boundaries around what we can do. Groupthink. Too many people think in the box. You know, you all heard the Bay of Pigs invasion, story about the Bay of Pigs invasion. And there's numerous other examples of groupthink where bright people, really intelligent, smart people, conformed to a perspective because they thought they were going to please their boss or because they thought they had to get along with everybody. So again, that's where the role of the consultant is so critical. The roles of the consultant is to break up this whole dynamic of groupthink and to really introduce challenges to the team that's working on this and challenges to the system as a whole. I've been in organizations where even the employees often have a mindset. Employees, the unions have a mindset that this is the way we do things and we always have done these things. I once worked for W.T. Grant, so I'll never forget arguing with them over some of their policies. And this was in 1971. I was an assistant store manager, about to be promoted to a store manager in Racine, Wisconsin. And I said, I disagreed with a lot of these things with the district manager. And he told me, John, he said, we've been in existence since 1880. It's over 100, nearly 100 years at the time. It's 1971. He said, we're one of only 3 companies that during the Great Depression paid a dividend during the Great Depression. And he said, and you are going to tell us how to do things? Well, I quit about a year later. I realized I wasn't going any place in a company like this where everybody was so hidebound in the way of thinking. And 3 years later, of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was probably should have been obvious in retrospect. 3 years later, W.T. Grant was the largest corporation in the United States to ever go bankrupt. So That's what I'd like to say. Everyone needs an advocate too. Now, I wanted to quote something I wrote down here. You've heard that he who has a lawyer for a client has a fool for a client. He who has a lawyer to represent him has a fool for a client. Well, he who has a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. Well, he who has himself for a planner has a fool for a client as well. It's the same as a lawyer. It's the same as a doctor. If you have a consultant that uh, and you have an internal consultant, somebody who's one of your employees that you think could do the job, you're dead wrong, because these people can't challenge the system. They have too much at stake in the system to challenge the system. Dr. Deming, as you said, you need somebody from outside who has an outside perspective to be able to challenge the system. So that's all for today, folks. I hope you'll take some of this advice to heart. My name is John Persico, and my phone number is 612-310-3803. And you can find my address on my site, my email address. But please contact me if you'd like to discuss this further, and if you have any interest in doing some kind of strategic thinking, strategic development, strategic planning, call it what you want. But if you're looking at the future and you want to try to find a way to make your organization more efficient, more effective, I hope you'll think of calling me. Thank you very much, and have a great day.